Hello and welcome to another episode of The Aurorian Dancer, the YouTube series where I sit in front of a camera and microphone and talk about anime, more anime things for 15, 20, 10 or so minutes. So, just want to get right into it. First things first, update on Paranoia Agent. That was a fantastic show. Give it a watch, total recommendation. Not perfect, but just amazing nonetheless. Really captivating series. This is the word that I'll use for it. It had me on the edge of my seat for most of it, waiting to see what was going to happen next. I realize that's a little bit cliche to say, but it was really cool. And I would definitely advise checking it out at some point. It's only 13 episodes. I'll have a full-length video on it at some point. I don't like making video promises because I rarely follow through on them. Anyway, today we've got another really cool mid-2000s anime, or at least a thing within that show that I want to talk about. I started Texhnolyze yesterday, just a little bit after I finished Paranoia Agent. Texhnolyze had been on my to-watch list for a little bit, not very long, but it just seemed like a really cool, aesthetically pleasing show that I was like, okay, I like these early to mid-2000s gritty dystopian sort of stories and aesthetics. So let's go check it out, and checking it out, very well worth it. I'm 5 episodes deep right now, 5 or 6. One of the two. I think I'm 6 episodes deep actually. And the thing that I find interesting about it so far is how it communicates things through silence, or at least not absolute silence, but a lot of the time we've got our main guy, his name is said so infrequently, I can't remember it yet. We've got our main guy, he very rarely says anything, and whenever he does, it's very rarely coherent. Most of the time, he's either panting, growling, yelling, screaming, whatever ing you want to put on top of, just going like, that's basically what he's doing for most of, if not like 90% of the first 6 episodes. But the show does an incredibly good job of taking that and using it as a build-up to a payoff. One of the best things about action anime is that it's a lot like comedy. You're able to get this build-up, and then this punch, this payoff that makes you go, yeah! Whenever, something finally breaks the main character's way, or you go like, whenever something... you're just watching it. It's very visceral whenever it's done correctly, and that's what's done here. It's, the action in the show is very infrequent through the first 6 episodes, but it's always snappy. It's always right on the beat. It catches you at the right time because there's so much build up to it. The first couple of episodes, we follow this guy like in a hazmat suit with a backpack as he makes his way, I believe, into and through and then out the city of Lux, and when on his way, he does encounter some resistance. He meets up with a few people. I'm not going to talk about them too much because of spoilers, and I don't remember enough of them to talk coherently about them, because I'm very not detail-oriented when I watch these kind of shows. But whenever he runs into these groups of people, he very regularly encounters resistance. And, as somebody who's been around the block a few times whenever it comes to watching shows, you can kind of sense whenever the tension is building. Like, you go a long time without something happening, you start getting on edge, you start thinking something's gonna happen. And what Texhnolyze does so well with this is that instead of those moments dragging on for too long and feeling like forever, like it's never gonna end, because they drag on for quite a while, but what it does is it ends it at just the right time. You meet a new character, you start a conversation, something happens at just the right time that allows you to stay interested, and whenever that happens, you've got you got the really slow build up here, which builds up to this small climax. So like you go like whoop, right there. So I'm trying to hold my hand linear on the camera. So you go up to this like second tier of tenseness. You're at this first tier, and then you get up to the second tier. Once you've met some people, you've been talking to them for a little bit, getting to know them. They're side characters, they're insignificant, you don't need to remember a ton about them, they're just here to fuel the story. And with that in mind, you're like, okay, so when's the real stuff gonna happen in this episode? When are we gonna get to the real meat of things? And what the show does is, once it's got you at that level, it almost immediately snaps you into that third tier, that action tier, where you've got gunfights and swords and screaming and a lot going on at the same time. Another thing the show does within the first couple of episodes, and I'm going to get to another example of the tension building later, this just popped into my mind, it seems like a good thing to mention, is it uses the cinematic technique of putting multiple things, like putting multiple events side by side, multiple perspectives side by side, but not necessarily saying that they are concurrent. Like, a lot of the time, whenever you see shots, right next to each other, or cuts right next to each other in shows and movies and such, your mind thinks, okay, those things are happening at the same time, but that isn't necessarily the case with Texhnolyze. It doesn't say outright, the show never explains explicitly when each thing is happening. You can make guesses based off of when people interact with each other after the events have taken place, but there's always this sort of disconnect which is present in the show. You always feel off in some way, and that disconnect fuels not being entirely confident in the fact that everything is happening when you think it is. And that, I think, is brilliant. It really helps, like I said, with the tension, keeping it interesting, because it always keeps you guessing. One thing that a show needs to do really well if it goes long times without something intense happening is it needs to be able to keep you invested in what's going on screen. I've heard the Monogatari series does a very good job with this. It's very character-driven, very dialogue-driven, but the dialogue and the characters are so good that you stay interested and you stay invested, and that's what I think Texhnolyze does incredibly well. Another example of the tension building thing is, I think it's episodes 4 and 5. So our main character has, this is spoilers ahead for episodes 4 and 5, not mega spoilers, but I would advise pausing the video if you can and checking out the first few episodes. I'll be right here waiting for you, but the character has been, main character Ishii, I think Ishii's his name, yeah. Or I might be getting that confused with the character from Paranoia Agent. He gets his arm cut off, he gets his leg cut off at some point. And he's now gotten his limbs replaced with, he's been Texhnolyzed, as the show says. He has these prosthetic robot arms and legs, and he's having a very difficult time coming to grips with it, and he's having a very difficult time figuring out how to move effectively, especially because he broke out of his little chamber that he was being held in after he got Texhnolyzed, and the anesthetic is still very much affecting him. He has a very difficult time, even seeing everything's like move in front of his face, so it's very difficult for him to make any forward progress. He gets caught by the people that he escaped from, but instead of killing him or taking them to the master like they should have, they throw him in a sewer thinking that, somebody else will come along and pick him up and take him to the master, but that doesn't end up happening initially. He falls into this sewer, and then the sewer becomes this sort of anchoring point for him, for his character, as it almost turns into this like pseudo rehab center almost, where he's like learning how to walk effectively, and then he starts being able to control his arm effectively, and then he starts treading water as he's following these flowers that I think it's Ran is her name, is dropping down for him in order to lead him out of the sewer. And whenever he gets out, there's this big, this is what I was talking about. You got this, you have the first layer here. You have the first layer here, which is the process inside the sewer. Him slowly gaining and building competency with his limbs inside the sewer. Once that's happened, once that's been established, the second tier the second tension tier is what I'll call it, arises whenever the flowers start falling through from the ceiling. You start recognizing that there's somebody trying to lead him out of here. Then you want to know who that is. I've spoiled who that is, but like I said, you should have watched the first 4 or so episodes before continuing on the video. But that's whenever the second layer is established, and he slowly starts building even further. You can feel how distressed he is and how strong he's trying to become, trying to wade his way through this dirty, disgusting sewer that nobody thought in a million years he'd have a chance of breaking out of. And then you get this gigantic, massive payoff whenever he gets to the surface, but there's these iron bars in front of him, and he grabs one with the limb, and he's just pulling, yanking it, tugging it with all the strength that he can barely gut out of his basically infirm body at this point, just trying to use whatever power he has left. And then there's this huge flash of light, and he did it. It just shows the broken bar, and that's all the viewer needs to know. He broke it. He falls forward, the episode ends. There's not much more that it needs to give to the viewer except for that one cathartic punch, the one apex of everything where he yanks the bar free. You hear the sound effect, you see the light, and you just inside you go, yeah! Like, finally! He has, something's gone right for this guy, because since the beginning of the show, literally nothing has gone right for him. Like, it's insane. Like, it's Kenzo Tenma levels. I've already compared. This is now my second comparison to Kenzo Tenma I've used for a character. It's like, it's Kenzo Tenma levels of things just continuously going wrong. And something finally goes right for him, and it's so amazing to see. And all of the emotional build-up from the first 4 episodes seems worth it, but then it's not done. We get into another sequence, like another rehab sequence in the next episode of him trying to make it up and down these stairs, and he another series of building up. He's struggling to get up the stairs, but then finally he makes it. But then that's again not the conclusion. That's the second tier. The first tier was him seeing the stairs and trying to get up them, realizing he has this mountain to climb. The second tier is after he climbs up the stairs. He starts wandering through the city. He finds the people who cut off his limbs, and then goes apeshit. This is where you got that second tier right now, where it's just continuously building up more and more as he chases down these people. And then the third tier finally breaks whenever he encounters these guys and kicks their ass, says collectively. Like, he he destroys the one guy who cut off his limbs. Like, he's sitting on the ground in this bloody pool of disgustingness, his face caved in, basically, from a metal arm smacking into his face so many times. And you just, on the inside, at least me, I was just, I felt like I was in the NBA championship, the NBA finals, and my team just hit the go-ahead 3, I've not felt this pumped in a very long time from watching an anime. And yet, just in 6 episodes, in this seemingly bland, uninteresting, slow, monotonous crawl of a show, you've got these moments mixed in that just are absolute pure catharsis. And that's what keeps the show interesting. I was questioning, actually, in the sewer scene, I think it's episode 5, I'm like, why am I still watching this show? The aesthetic is cool, the music is fantastic, but is there enough here to keep me going? Am I going to keep going past this episode or the next? And the answer is hell yes. I'm going to finish this series. I want to see where it takes me. I want to see if there's going to be more more of these moments that you can point to and say, this show builds and releases tension extremely well, and it communicates all this. It builds all this tension with very little vocal energy. You hear him panting and yelling and screaming a lot, but there's nothing coherent to go on. There's very rarely anything coherent to go on with many characters. You get 1 or 2 sentences, and then the next scene happens. You have to build, you have to make these connections, connect the dots in your mind about what these characters are thinking, and that's what makes this show, it's part of what makes this show so interesting, is you're able to keep your mind active in these dull segments, where, I almost think that those dull segments are there in order to allow you to catch your breath, connect everything, so that whenever another big payoff happens, it feels even better. And that's attributed to fantastic direction and fantastic writing. So yeah, I would 100% recommend, I've already recommended in the video that you start the show. If you haven't finished the show, you should finish the show. I will be finishing the show over the next few days. I think I'm done watching anime for tonight. It's 1:14 in the morning, and I need to do some dishes, but that should be about it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. One thing that I have not been asking for in the last couple of videos that I really should be is, even if you did not enjoy the video itself, I would very much like if you left a comment telling me what I can do better. If this is not the sort of thing, if you guys don't think I'm good at this sort of thing, or you think that I should change up a few things, please let me know. The only way that I can get better as a creator is to get constructive criticism. And if you liked the video, liking it and giving me a supportive comment would also help. But I'm primarily looking for things that I'm doing wrong, because you don't get better unless you learn those things, or else you just kind of stay at this static plane, and that's not what I'm looking for as a content creator. But anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, do all the things that I said, and even if you did enjoy, do those things as well. Please fill out your healers, and yeah, that seems to be about it for me. See ya.